And here we are in the world of the pen. Um, However, before I get started on the pen, I realized there was one thing that would be very helpful to know about the pencil. So now that leaves me wondering, no, I don't need to. I was thinking, should I make a movie just on this little thing for the pencil? But no, you guys are working on a project for the pencil. You're going to not read this. Are you reading right now? God, I hope not. You're going to watch this in time. I think that it will not affect anything. We're still good. All right, so just real quick, I just want to talk about the pencil. I want to make sure I got a good black stroke. I'll go to 2 points. So I'm just going to draw a circle. I have dots, dotted line. Not really what I want. All right, so back to the pencil. I'm going to draw a circle. There's my circle. There is a type of path that Illustrator works with. Well, there's 2 types of paths. There's open and closed. This here is an open path, which means that I have my first point from when I first interacted with my pencil, and the stroke goes all the way along, intersecting different anchors along the way, and then I have an end point. So here's my beginning and my end. Since these do not touch, and we do not have a completed circle, this is called an open path. And open paths are fine unless you're trying to fill them later on when we get into fills. You get some pretty weird, you get a weird little jagged fill that kind of like stretches between these two. Or if you're ever doing live paint, which we'll get into in a couple of weeks. So this is an open path, and the pencil tool allows you to, I'll just delete that, allows you to draw a path and close it as long as you push Option or Alt, and you can see that when I do push it, the little X next to my pencil turns into like a circle, and that basically means that I'm going to have a closed path. So when I let go, it automatically joins up with the first point that I laid down. So now what I have is I have a complete infinite loop. Basically, this path is now, there is no end to it anywhere. It's cleaner, but it fixes that fill problem if that's ever an issue, and then it also allows you to live paint it without having to worry about filling in gaps or fixing gaps and that sort of a deal. So get used to that. Just practice drawing a closed path by holding down the Option or Alt key, and that'll do it. And this can happen at any point too. I could just not even finish my triangle and just let go, or whatever it is that I'm drawing, some weird abstract shape, and then go bonk, and it just automatically closes it. So closing a path, practice that, get used to it, and now on to the pen. Okay, the pen tool. I have for you a little exercise file that you should open up and work with. It's called Pen Intro, and basically that gives us this. The pen tool is the very first tool in the drawing tool group, and the pen tool looks kind of like an old-fashioned inkwell pen, and if you were to click and hold on that, you would see that you have 4 different tools under here, and we're going to cover all of these in this video. We're starting with the pen tool, straight up. The pen tool is a drawing tool that gives you a little more control in how you lay down your points and then connect those points with segments. And with the pen tool, you can have quite a bit of control with straight lines, So geometric shapes are very easy to do with the pen tool, but then it also gives you the ability to work on curves on your segments or your path uh, by interfacing with that bezier approach. So what I have is I have a sort of grayed out square on the left side of this half of the document. And I'm going to show you first just how to do something that's very basic and geometric. The way the pen works is you don't click and drag like you would with the pencil. It's something where you actually click and then let go. So if I wanted to do my first point of a square, I just click once and let go. And there's nothing happening. However, there's a tiny little dot that is now visible on my artboard here. And if I were to go down and click again, I now have laid down another point. And there is the segment that connects those 2 points. If I move to the right and click again, I lay down another point and a new connection between those two. If I go up to the top right, there's my other point. And now I have an open path. So if I want to close it, I have to go back and click on the very first one. You can see that when your mouse hovers over that first point, you get a little circle next to the pen icon, and that means you've got a closed path. And voila, there's my little polygon. It's not quite perfect. It's hard to nail a square unless you're using a nice little modifier like the Shift key. So if I was to start here and hold down Shift and click there, it's straight line vertically, and click over here, straight line horizontally, straight line vertically, but not quite because it's hard to figure out the height. But anyways, that's a better square. But this little exercise here is for you to experiment with the most basic. I'm going to hold down Shift. I'm going to try to nail it. The most basic shape, a polygon. It's the 4-sided polygon. Hey, nice. I nailed it. So clicking, moving your, hopefully, a stylus on your graphics tablet, moving it a certain distance, clicking again, moving it, clicking again, and then closing your path will give you a very basic polygon. Now, if we wanted to introduce a shape that has curves to it, it's a different story. Oh, and by the way, it doesn't have to be 4-sided. You can go click, 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 and there's your more advanced polygon. I should just bring back that square. It was so pretty. Hello, beautiful square. All right, so an important thing about drawing shapes is that when you close a path, you are now free to go draw another shape. So since I just closed that path of the square, if I come and click somewhere else, I'm starting a new shape. Okay, but if I don't close it, and I say, oh, I like that, I want to do another one of those over here, and I come over here and start clicking, it's continuing that path. It thinks that I just want to continue making some sort of shape with this pen tool. So if you have drawn your shape and you would like to not close it but move on to a new shape, then you have to deselect that somehow. And the best way to deselect it is just to hold down your Command key, click somewhere off of your shape, it deselects it, and now I can come in and draw the other shape that I was hoping to do. So that again is to deselect it somehow. And yes, you could go over here and click on your selection tool and click somewhere off on your artboard somewhere else. But just holding down that Command key real quick and turning your tool into the selection tool temporarily and clicking somewhere is really just the quickest way to do it. The other way to do it would be to do a Command Shift A, but that's a lot of keys. It's a lot easier just using your thumb. Okay, so what about curves? So curves with the pen tool gets a little trickier. If I were to try to draw this circle with the pen tool and I didn't know anything about Illustrator or the pen tool, you might be like, man, how am I going to do that? Because obviously you live out in the sticks and you work with a computer. Sorry if you actually do that. I'm not poking fun. It's just my voice all of a sudden sounded like some hillbilly. So, you might be like, well, okay, I guess I just need a lot more points to go in there and make this thing a full circle. But no, that would just be, it's terrible. It's not even a circle. It's still a polygon. You can see all the straight edges and all the sides of this thing. So yeah, that's not the way you would do it. In fact, you can do it with 4 points with the pen tool. The trick is to, instead of click and let go, you press down on your device and you start dragging. And look at that. That's a bezier handle. It's not a path. It's not a path. I'm still just laying down a point. You can see it in the middle. So bezier handles means that I am instructing this point to have a curve come out of that point with the next segment that is established. So this is the bezier handle, and we talked about this a bit when we were working with the selection tools. The longer the bezier handle, the greater the curve will be out of there. The shorter, the more closer to a point, hard edge corner it will be. So I'm going to just kind of leave this thing somewhere out around here. So there's my point. Here's the instructions to curve the point in either direction when I lay down my next anchor. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to click and I'm going to drag, and you can see how that already is starting to look like an arc, a segment that is arced. And I can do the same thing down below at the bottom, click and drag. And then on the right side, click and, oh, that was a little too much, drag. This is going to be kind of an awkward circle. And then back on the first anchor that we laid down, you're going to close your loop. And as soon as you do that, you got to keep dragging again to tell it that you would like it to be curved on that side as well. So there is definitely a funky circle. But since we know all about our tools, I'd just go grab my direct selection tool, the white one, and I'd come in and start messing with those bezier handles, trying to figure out what is the appropriate length and position for these guys here in order to get a circle that is going to be a bit more lovely. That's pretty decent. This one could go a little further. That looks good. That's a pretty good looking circle. So the pen tool can do hard edge polygons by clicking and releasing, and then you can do nice curves by clicking and dragging before releasing. It's probably one of the most difficult things to wrap your head around when you're first getting into these tools. However, the pen tool is the hero. It's the total hero. It's like a logo designer's, what was it? Golden tool, whatever. It's an animator's, tool, and this pen just shows up everywhere. It's in Photoshop. It's in After Effects. And understanding how to actually work with the curve and bezier handles and actually like drawing with this thing is really important for anyone who's getting into design. Okay, so now a little challenge. Look at the bottom shape down here. Maybe I'll do this. Okay, so here's something that kind of looks like a faucet handle that I drew. We're going to recreate this by using the dotted little star thing over here kind of as our guide. So I've set it up so that every point and corner is placed where you could get a nice little faucet handle off this thing, as long as you understand how to use the pen properly. So if I start up at the top of this thing and I click and I drag, either left or right, basically you're dragging in the direction of the intended next anchor. I'm intending on laying an anchor down on the left side of this little star, so I'm dragging to the left. If I were going to go to the right, I would then drag to the right. You always drag in the direction of the next intended point. So I know that I'm going to come down here. I'm going to click and I'm going to drag. And then I'm going to go to the point to the left. I'm going to click and I'm going to drag. You can kind of tell I have to drag a little bit further. I didn't drag enough on the first one I laid down, but I can fix that later. And then click and drag. And then click and drag. So this is just an exercise for you guys to get used to clicking. Uh-oh, I double clicked by accident. When you double click, you lay down and end your path. I didn't want to end my path. There, 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 and then I'm going to have to revisit this with my direct selection tool. There. This one's too long. This one's too long. This one could be longer, I think. Get a little more flange off there. Yeah, super. So there's my little faucet handle, created with only 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 points. Okay, so 8 points, you can make more complex shapes than you would think. So this exercise file, get in there, practice, and try to nail it. If you didn't nail it, delete it and try it again. The circle, work on the circle. Try to get as good of a circle as possible. However, you're never going to totally nail it with the pen tool. And that's why they have these other tools like the direct selection tool to go back in and start working with the placement of your anchors, as well as the beziers. Now, I'm going to talk about these in a different movie. That way this movie isn't so epically long and huge.